Part 3 of Murder by Arnold Bennett. To know about the previous parts, kindly visit itel.substack.com and look for Murder Part 1 and Part 2. The same link will also be provided in the description of this podcast. So let us begin Part 3 of Murder by Arnold Bennett. And this is the last part of the series. The Superintendent of Podesh, Kwangate was the county town of the western half of the county, and the detective sergeant were in the billiard room of the Bellevue. Both were mufti. The powerful green shaded lamps usual in billiard rooms shone down ruthlessly on the green table and on the reclining body of John Franting, which had not moved and had not been moved. A carwoman was just leaving these officers when a stout gentleman who had successfully beguiled a policeman guarding the other end of the long corridor squeezed past her, greeted the two officers, and shut the door. The superintendent, a thin man with lips to match and a mustache, stared hard at the arrival. I am staying with my friend, Dr. Farnival, said the arrival cheerfully. You telephoned for him, and as he had to go out to one of these cases in which nature will not wait, I offered to come in his place. I have met you before, Superintendent, at Scotland Yard. Dr. Austin Bond, exclaimed the superintendent. He, said the other. They shook hands, Dr. Bond genially, the superintendent half consequential, half differential, as one who had his dignity to think about. Also as one who resented an intrusion but dared not show resentment. The detective sergeant reconciled at the dazzling name of the great amateur detective, a genius who had solved the famous mysteries of the Yellow Hat, the Three Towns, the Three Feathers, the Gold Spoon, etc., 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 whose devilish perspicacity had again and again made professional detectives both look and feel foolish, and whose notorious friendship with the loftiest heads of Scotland Yard compelled all Polish forces to treat him very politely indeed. Yes, said Dr. Austin Bond. After detailed examination, been shot about 90 minutes? Poor fellow. Who found him? The woman who has just gone out. Some servant here. Came in to look after the fire. How long since? Oh, about an hour ago. Found the bullet? I see it hit the brass on the Q rack there. The detective sergeant glanced at the superintendent, who, however, resolutely remained unastonished. Here is the bullet, said the superintendent. Ah, commented Dr. Austin Bond, glinting through his spectacles at the bullet as it lay in the superintendent's hand. Decimal 38, I see, flattened. It would be. Sergeant, said the superintendent, you can get help and have the body moved now. Dr. Bond has made his examination. Eh, doctor? Certainly, answered Dr. Bond. At the fireplace, he was smoking a cigarette, I see. Either he or his murderer? You have got a clue? Oh, yes, the superintendent answered, not without pride. Look here, your torch, sergeant. The detective sergeant produced a pocket electric lamp, and the superintendent turned to the window sill. I have got a stronger one than that, said Dr. Austin Bond, producing another torch. The superintendent displayed fingerprints on the window frame, footmarks on the sill, and a few strands of inferior blue cloth. Dr. Austin Bond next produced a magnifying glass and inspected the evidence at very short range. The murderer must have been a tall man. You can judge that from the angle of fire. He wore a blue suit, which he tore slightly on the splintered wood of the window frame. One of his boots had a hole in the middle of the sole, and he had only three fingers on his left hand. He must have come in by the window and gone out by the window, because the hall porter is sure that nobody except the dead man entered the lounge by any door within an hour of the time when the murder must have been committed. The superintendent proudly gave many more details and ended by saying that he had already given instructions to circulate a description. Curious, said Dr. Austin Bond, that a man like John Franting should let anyone enter the room by the window, especially a shabby looking man. You knew the deceased personally then? No, but I know he was John Franting. How, doctor? Luck. Sergeant, said the superintendent, piqued. Tell the constable to fetch the hall porter. Dr. Austin Bond walked to and fro, peering everywhere, and picked up a piece of paper that had lodged against the step of the platform, which ran round two sides of the room for the raising of the spectators' benches. He glanced at the paper casually and dropped it again. My man, the superintendent addressed the hall porter. How can you be sure that nobody came in here this afternoon? Because I was in my cubicle all the time, sir. The hall porter was lying, but he had to think of his own welfare. On the previous day, he had been reprimanded for quitting his post against the rule, taking advantage of the absence of the manager. He had sinned once again, and he lived in fear of dismissal if found out. With a full view of the lounge, yes, sir, might have been in there beforehand. Dr. Austin Bond suggested. No, said the superintendent. The carwoman came in twice. Once, just before Franting came in, she saw the fire wanted making up and she went for some coal and then returned later with some coal. But the look of the Franting, but the look of Franting frightened her, and she went back with her coal. Yes, said the hall porter. I saw that. Another lie. At a sign from the superintendent, he withdrew. I should like to have a word with that carwoman, said Dr. Austin Bond. The superintendent hesitated. Why should the great amateur meddle with what did not concern him? Nobody had asked his help, but the superintendent thought of the amateur's relation with Scotland Yard and sent for the carwoman. Did you clean the window here today? Dr. Austin Bond interrogated her. Yes, please, sir. Show me your left hand. The slattern obeyed. How did you lose your little finger? In a mangle accident, sir. Just come to the window, will you, and put your hands on it. But take off your left boot first. The slattern began to weep. It's quite all right, my good creature, Dr. Austin Bond reassured her. Your skirt is torn at the hem, isn't it? When the slattern was released from her ordeal and had gone, carrying one boot in her grimy hand, Dr. Austin Bond said genially to the superintendent, just a fluke. I happened to notice she had only three fingers on her left hand when she passed me in the corridor. Sorry, I have destroyed your evidence, but I felt sure almost from the first that the murderer hadn't either entered or decamped by the window. How? Because I think he is still here in the room. The two police officers gazed about them as if exploring the room for the murderer. I think he is there. Dr. Austin Bond pointed to the corpse. And where did he hide the revolver after he had killed him? Demanded the thin lipped superintendent easily. When he had somewhat recovered his aplomb. I had thought of that too, said Dr. Austin Bond, beaming. It is always a very wise course to leave a dead body absolutely untouched until a professional man has seen it. But looking at the body can do no harm. You see, the left hand pocket of the overcoat. Notice how it bulges. Something unusual in it. Something that has the shape of a. Just feel inside it, will you? The superintendent, obeying, drew a revolver from the overcoat pocket of the dead man. Ah, yes, said Dr. Austin Bond. A Webley Mark III, quite new. You might take out the ammunition. The superintendent dismantled the weapon. Yes, yes, three chambers empty. Wonder how he used the other two. Now, where is that bullet? You see, he fired, his arm dropped, and the revolver happened to fall into the pocket. Fired with his left Fired with his left hand? Did he? Asked the superintendent, foolishly ironic. Certainly. A dozen years ago, Franting was perhaps the finest amateur lightweight boxer in England. And one reason for it was that he bewildered his opponents by being left handed. His lefts were much more fatal than his rights. I saw him box several times, whereupon Dr. Austin Bond strolled to the step of the platform near the door and picked up the fragment of very thin paper that was lying there. This, said he, must have blown from the hearth to here, but that dropped from the window when the door was opened. It's part of a letter. You can see the burnt remains of the other part in the corner of the fender. He probably lighted the cigarette with it, out of bravado, his last bravado. Read this. The superintendent read. Repeat that I realize how fond you are of me. Oh no, how fond you are of me, but you have killed my affection for you. and I shall leave our home tomorrow. This is absolutely final. Stop. Stop. Dr. Austin Bond, having the innate time satisfactorily demonstrated in his own unique, rapid way that police officers were a set of numbskulls, bade the superintendent a most courteous good evening, nodded amicably to the detective sergeant, and left in triumph. I must get some morning and go back to the flat, said Emily Franting. She was sitting one morning in the lobby of the Palladi's Hotel, Copenhagen. Lomax Harder had just called on her with an English newspaper containing an account of the inquest, at which the jury had returned a verdict of suicide upon the body of her late husband. Her eyes filled with tears. Time will put her right, thought Lomax Harder, tenderly watching her. I was bound to do what I did, and I can keep a secret forever. With this, the story Murder by Arnold Bennett concluded. It's a lovely story where the murderer remained untraced even when the great detective, although amateur, Dr. Austin Bond investigated the case. Although he dumped and beat the superintendent in his investigation and proved that the conclusion made by the superintendent is not correct, but his conclusions are also incorrect. As we can see, that the main murderer, Lomax Harder, is still untraced and may be living happily ever after with his lady love, Emily Franting. Thank you and see you in the next week.